Shalom and welcome to this week's Living Torah. Got a couple things. First of all, I'm going to be traveling a little bit in the next couple of months. It's the end of August. Last week of August 2024. And how many of you are just waiting to get through to November? Okay, I mean, with all the stuff that's going on, let's just get there, figure out what we got to deal with, and move forward. But that's not the way time works, so we're going to have to deal with it. I will be, Bezrat Hashem, God willing, I will be in Battlefield Assembly of Messiah in Rossville, Georgia. This will be September 14th, I believe it is. And we'll be doing the Tabernacle experience. Be there the whole day, enjoying the time with Bill and Kimberly and the group there. So if you're anywhere around Rossville, Georgia, you're more than welcome to come. I'll be doing Sukkot at Talking Rock. This will be the first part, actually the center of Sukkot. I'll be traveling. I'll be with our group Life Assembly at the first and the end of Sukkot. But I'll be in Talking Rock, Georgia, and then up with Exodus Roadbender or Tony Boyette and that crew up in Tellico Plains, Tennessee. And for both of those, I'll be doing the Tabernacle experience. I wish I'd have remembered to continue. Somewhere along the way, I lost count of how many times I've done this. Somewhere in excess of 100, I think, by now. But it's amazing how over and over again, as I teach that, it's just I learn something new almost every time. So looking forward to those times. And one more, this I think is the first time that I have mentioned this. We are working on January being in Pennsylvania. So why January? Why couldn't we have done this in the spring? Well, it just didn't work out that way. But January we'll be doing a youth-oriented. Not quite sure what all is going to be happening there. More information to come. All right, with that, we go into the book of Devarim, Deuteronomy, and it's the Torah portion, Re, or C. Now, really, I hope that there's a couple of words in Hebrew that I've gotten through because I've taught on them like 5,000 times now. And one of those is the word Re, or C. And it brings us to a very simple principle of life. Do we walk by sight or do we walk by vision? Now, we could tie this very easily to walking by faith or by sight, because what is faith? Faith is seeing something. It is seeing something that other people refuse to see, because they must see it with their natural eyes. And when we see something, when we rely only on our natural sight, that's really near vision, okay? That's short-sightedness, because you're not seeing the purposes. We look out right now, and we see in Franklin, we're already having leaves turning. It's wonderful. The leaves are turning. It was 52 degrees this morning. The leaves are falling. Why? I mean, we can just look out there, or we can perceive that winter is coming. We have a place that we walk our dog, and during the spring, there's ants that are crawling back and forth, and I don't know where they're going, where they're coming from, what they're doing really, but they make these burrows in the road, this gravel road. But right now, the ants there's not as much activity. Why? Because they're perceiving. They're perceiving that the season is changing, that things are happening, and therefore their activities must change. So as we see, or rather Re, the things that are happening in the world around us, should not our activities be changing? Should not our priorities be changing? Perceiving is to walk by sight, by vision or faith, versus walking by sight, is allowing us to perceive the actions and consequences that are going to come. If we go back to the book of Proverbs specifically, chapters 1 through 4, it talks about a foolish man who is taken in by a harlot. Now, sight, in this case, is going to lead that foolish man into what? Destruction. There's nothing good in the end that is going to come out of this relationship, because it is temporary. It is maybe temporary pleasure, but it is still temporary. The fruit of that relationship is going to be bad fruit, destructive fruit. But on the other hand, vision, if that man in Proverbs chapter 4 is walking by vision, he is going to see the sight of the harlot. He is then going to, his perception is going to allow him to walk in wisdom, which means he's going to turn away from and therefore not be led into that destruction. So with that being said, in the next months that are upon us, if we're walking by sight, you're going to believe every commercial that comes on and be absolutely, totally, helplessly confused on any issue. But if we walk by vision, by faith, then all that's happening around us is, in a way, inconsequential. Because we live our life, when we live our life by vision, by perception, it takes me to a statement that my pastor many years ago, this is late 1980s, used to say quite often. He said, in light of eternity, what does it matter? You know, those words that were I heard them first from Pastor Linda Watson, Mountain View Nazarene Church in Tucson, Arizona. And those words just struck me as truth, of something to live life by. It's kind of like the biblical perception of that would be the word Selah. In the Psalms and other places, we see this word Selah, and you try to find it, and it's known as a musical pause or something like that. And I believe that those definitions are pretty much irrelevant to what is actually the word Selah. The best definition I've ever heard is one that goes along with this phrase of, in light of eternity, what does it matter? That Selah is stop. Look back, read again what you have just read in that psalm or wherever it is, and consider those words in light of eternity. Well, I mean, with that being the case, there should be like this huge, instead of, at the end of the, or in addition to, I guess, at the end of the Torah, the books of the Torah, it says, Kazak, I can't, be strong, and let us be strengthened. There would also be that'd be a great place to put the word Selah. Yeah, in light of eternity. What have I just read? And how has it affected me? Right? We could put a big Selah at the end of Revelation, couldn't we? In light of eternity, how has this affected me? So as the people are being told to see or ray, it is about blessing and cursing, and it is the setting is going to be Mount Gerizim, the Mount of Blessing, Mount Ebal, the Mount of Curses. I've been honored to stand there many, many times from Elon Moreh, looking out over these two mountains. And a lot of people will stand there. They will take pictures. It's kind of the typical tourist thing. Israeli tour guides, come. Okay, here is what happened here. Take pictures. Okay, let's go. This is very bad Israel accent right there. But there will be many people that go to Elon Moreh, that will stand there, they will see in the distance Mount Gerizim, Mount Ebal, take their picture, go home, and then text me later on, go, and where was this? I can't remember. And fortunately, I've seen that so many times that I can actually tell people what from the picture. But the perception, what are we perceiving when we look at those two mountains? Well, one is that there are trees. The other, on Mount Gerizim, there's trees. On Mount Ebal, there's no trees. So what am I perceiving? I'm perceiving that there's water. In actuality, there's 14 freshwater springs on Mount Gerizim. I can't see from Elon Moreh. I can't see those springs, but I can see the evidence of the springs. I can see the evidence of what it's going to be if I walk in the blessings of the water of His Word. Where on the other hand, I can see desert climate. I can see no fruit. But I can also perceive that if I do not walk in the water of His Word, I will be like a desert. So it depends on what we're doing. Are we just looking, or are we perceiving? It's the same as somebody texted me, a friend of mine texted me this morning and said, hey, I've never heard you teach on this thing of that blessing food was a pagan practice. And I text him back, and I can do this because we're very close friends. And I said, yes, you've been there when I've said it, but you never shamad. Okay, I know that shamad is not a real word, but it is for us. Okay, it is the act of shema'ing, which is shema'ing is not a word either. But I said, you've never. And he said, yeah, I got it. He says, I heard the noise in the room, but I never partook of the noise. And that's what the word Shema is about. I mean, great job there, Alex. That it is likened to food, is we can have a banquet set in front of us and go hungry because we never partook of the food. We can have a banquet of audible vibrations that are flowing around these days through teachings, but never partake of it, and therefore never enter into the blessings. Now, I'm going to go all the way over to chapter 12, and it says that I'm taking you to a place that, I got to go to the first, and let's see. In chapter 12, verse 1, it talks about when you enter the land, you are to dispossess those that are serving other gods. You're to break down the idols. You're to smash their standing stones and burn their sacred places completely. And we can, point fingers all day at Israel and going, they've never done this, okay? No, there may not be standing stones and altars and all kinds of things in Israel today, but there is, Israel as a people today living in the land, there's a lot of problems. And so Israel, the people of Israel, have never actually entered the land and taken back everything. Therefore, we end up with things like Gaza, the war of Hezbollah, all of these things going on. But before we, point fingers at Israel, Christianity has never done that either. Steeples on churches goes back to the Asheroth pole. All right, there's all kinds of things that we can go. But okay, before we start pointing fingers at Christianity, how many things in our own lives are still left there? How many things that, I kind of like the way that one looks. It's kind of like moving into a new house, and you love this garden that somebody has put in, let's say that you've got this new house, and it's got a swimming pool, and it's got a gazebo, and there's this this grill and all of those things, and then there's this garden out there. It's so beautiful. And then over in the side in the garden is this little Buddha thing. And you're like, I just don't want to disturb everything. So you leave it there, not knowing, not understanding the full value of what you have not done. It's kind of like, October 31st is going to be coming up. And there's people that are going to be putting all kinds of stuff in their yard, not understanding that what you allow in your yard may influence what is in your house. It's not fun and games, folks. I went to Lowe's the other day. It's like people are spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars on these things. I thought the economy was bad, but yet you can spend all this money on that. And what is the influence? People don't consider that this is all about death and evil, demonic forces. You allow the influence of demonic forces on your front yard and think somehow it's not ever going to get inside? Yes, it does. These are days that we need to be cleaning out things. Now, right after that, it says that you are to come into the place where Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh your Elohim will put his name. And there's a lot of talk, discussion, arguments over, well, where did he actually put his name? We go to Shiloh, and I've got the print somewhere around here that actually has in the rock there is the letters Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. So is that where he put his name? Well, in a way, yes. But we can actually look at the history of Israel as they come back, the Hebrews as they come back into the land, and they're first at Gilgal. They set up the tabernacle in Gilgal. Is that where he put his name? Yes. They then go to Shiloh. They put up the tabernacle. It becomes more of a permanent structure in Shiloh. Is that where he put his name? I would say yes. Then after, at the time of King David, he conquers the Jebusite city and ends up with Solomon will build the first temple on the Harabite, the Temple Mount. Is that where he put his name? Yes. So what is this about? Is the entering of the land, was it progressive? Yes. It was, he brought them to a place, and then he brought them to another place, and then he brought them to another place. And you and I can probably go back through our lives and consider that, if he would have brought me back in the mid-1980s from where I was in my life directly here, I think I would have probably exploded. I don't think that I could have physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually could I have taken that kind of a transition. But yet I look back and he moved Kathy and I from, into a Nazarene church, into a Assembly of God, into what would become a vineyard, and then into this walk. And, it's been progressive. He does that for our own good. I think maybe that's the purpose. I haven't taught this in a long time. Maybe that's the purpose of the millennium. If he took us directly from the tribulation, whatever that's going to look like, and the next moment we woke up with a resurrected body in eternity, I think it would be a little bit too much for us to handle. So is the millennium about a transition, a progress, something that's slows the process down a little bit, just so that we can handle the end results. Just my thought. Now, in verse 8, and this one's funny. You will not do the things the way you have done them here today, where everyone does what is right in their, for everyone does whatever in his own opinion seems right. Really? In the wilderness? With Moshe? Guiding the people through that experience? With the tabernacle there in their midst, with the Shekinah, the glory, with with Aaron's budding rod, with the jar of manna, with the tablets of the covenant, with the rest of the Torah written or being written as we're listening as it's being spoken right here by Moshe. Then in those days, everybody was, could we say, doing right, what was right in their own eyes? We haven't made a lot of progress, have we? But there's coming a day, to coin to use the phrase from the song, "Oh happy day," when we're not going to do what is right in our own eyes. Well, I mean, I guess you got the choice, but maybe if you perceive what the result of the choice is going to be, maybe you ought to be perceiving that now and not waiting. Doing what is right in our own eyes. What is that? That's when we read the scripture and go, well, I don't think it pertains to me. I just can't see how that could be in my own life. I mean, I know what it's saying, but anytime that we put the word "but" in regarding the instructions of the Almighty, things are not going to go well. How many people are walking in sickness, disease, poverty, lack of vision, whatever it may be? You go to a doctor over and over and over again, but it's like the woman with the issue of blood. It says that she had spent all she had. She had suffered at the hands of the physicians of that day. When you have a spiritual issue, medical solutions can't solve it. But when you consider that maybe the problem is I know what it says, but it'd be kind of like, well, I know what the word says regarding what is clean and unclean, but I enjoy it. Okay. Hey, I'd love to go out. I used to enjoy shrimp. I mean, I can hurt myself eating shrimp. But it's not about my taste buds anymore. It's about what he says. Applying that to every part of our lives is perceiving where we're going to live. On the mountain of Gerizim or on the mountain of Eval. See, the word curses is kind of the perception of that word is maybe what trips us up a little bit. It's like, talking to Alex last night on Life on Purpose about this whole thing of hell. Is this something that was concocted by the Catholic Church to scare people? How much of that is, and the conversation to me in the end becomes irrelevant, because to me there is either a living in his presence or without his presence, separated from his presence. In the end, we will live either in his presence or separated from his presence. Now, how many of us want to spend time trying to figure out what it means to live outside of his presence? I don't care. I don't care if it's the lake of fire, or if it's nuclear, or if it's microwave, or if it's some kind of proton thing that we haven't dreamed up yet and don't know anything about. Why would I care? what that is. I don't want to live there. I don't want to live separated from him. And so the concept of living in his blessings and curses is the same thing. Why would I want to? I don't even care what the word means. I don't want to live there. I want to live in his presence. Now, and with that, then we go through and we start kind of looking at the details of this. And down in verse 23, just take care not to eat the blood. For the life, the blood is the life, and you're not to eat the life with the meat. Okay? So is this about not having a rare steak? For me, that's irrelevant because I don't like rare steaks. Okay? If you do, that's up to you. But I don't like, and I know that it's not actually, it's juices, it's not, people can explain this away all they want to. But what is this about? This is a pagan practice. This is about in the book of Acts chapter 15 talks about this, the strangling of an animal. Pagan practices were that they would, it's kind of like that movie Red Dawn from years ago. The guy kills the deer, they slit its throat, pour a little bit of blood into a cup, and the guy's got to drink it. That's a pagan practice. Because if you remember, if you've watched the movie Red Dawn, it says you're receiving the power and strength of the animal into your life. And this is where Yeshua goes and says, you must eat of my flesh and drink of my blood. He is not speaking in a literal sense, but he is speaking of it in this sense. You need to understand where you receive your strength from. You either receive your strength from practices that are outside of God's will or from him himself. Now, chapter 13 talks about this person of who is a prophet or someone who gets messages while dreaming among you and gives you a sign and wonder, and then says, let's go and serve this other god. Oh, signs and wonders. See, the word says signs and wonders shall follow those who believe. It does not say that signs and wonders will lead us. So if you're looking at the television and these some of these meetings, I've been to some of them before, and people get all, the signs and wonders, and then I was at one many years ago. The guy is talking, signs and wonders, and then he's wanting an offering so that he can buy a new RV. That's to me a false god. It's a god of prosperity. Nothing wrong with prosperity until you start worshiping it. I'll speak English sometime. It's the love of money is the root of all evil. And so Yeshua says regarding Matthew, go back, read Matthew chapter 24. He says, when asked about the last days, the kingdom, he says, let no man deceive you. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars and all of these things. He said, let no man deceive you. Many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Messiah. I mean, you can go on YouTube. You can go on Dish Network, cable, or whatever. All of these channels. And there's people that are using the name Jesus and deceiving many. And have to take that into there's people using the name Yeshua and deceiving many. All right? Let's don't get caught up with signs and wonders. Remember, the beast of Revelation that starts speaking. Now, anybody that, many years ago when I went to Disneyland, the holograms. I mean, that was like, whoa, this is really creepy. Well, no, it is creepy. Because today, AI has brought us to the place that it is very close to impossible for someone, even someone that's trained, to tell what is real and what is not. It is easy to deceive people today, and especially when you talk about religion, it's even easier. People open themselves up to things in a religious aspect and open themselves up to religion because they don't actually know what the Word says. Now, with that, we'll go into chapter 14, and it says in verse 2, because you are a people set apart as kadosh, or holy, for Yudhe-Vav Elohim. Yudhe-Vav Elohim has chosen you to be his own unique treasure out of all the peoples on the face of the earth. Now, the word treasure is actually inserted there. The word unique is the Hebrew word segulah, and when we kind of tear that word down, let me give you a sentence of what that word means. An upright, strengthened, and protected people who are walking toward the king's breath and authority. How'd I get that? The word segulah is the letter samech, which is it is about encircling or protecting. It is, and I don't have time of course in this program to go through everything and how I get to these conclusions. But the word segulah is strengthened. So if I am in a situation, I am surrounded by an army. Okay, let's say you're a political figure, and you're surrounded by Secret Service and bulletproof glass and a protective vest and all of these things. There is a certain amount of strengthening. When you're walking down the road with somebody that is armed and somebody that that knows how to use that, there's a certain amount of strengthening. You're not really as concerned about the guy that's standing over there in the street corner, on the street corner in the shadows. You're strengthened because of who you're with. And so we are surrounded, the scripture tells us, we are surrounded by his presence, which means we are strengthened by his presence, and we should be living a life that is upright and kadosh, holy, because of that strengthening. The word, the letter gimel, it actually looks like a man walking. The lamed is the letter of the king or the shepherd's staff. The hay is his breath, which he breathes forth his word, therefore breathing forth his authority into our lives. And so that's how we get this word, that we are to be a people who are upright, strengthened, and protected, that are walking toward the king's breath and authority. That's pretty good. And that would make us, what? A unique treasure. Now, King Jimmy translated as a peculiar people. And every time I think about that word, I think about Eddie Chumney, who a few years ago stood up in front of a group of people and spoke a word of truth. I mean, one of the most powerful words of truth I've heard. He says, this movement, this Hebrew roots messianic walk, whatever, he says, it attracts two kinds of people: truth seekers and freak shows. Tell me that Eddie's wrong on that one. No. So, to be a peculiar people, a different people, is not just being different for the sake of being different, okay? You can want to be different just for the sake of being different. Like today. I mean, to pick on my favorite place, Walmart. the Walmart parking lot, you notice all of these people that are trying to be unique. They're trying to be different. They're trying to be peculiar. And guess what? They have succeeded. But they've succeeded in being just like everybody else that is trying to be unique, a standout, different, peculiar. They're all trying to find identity for the sake of trying to find identity because they're in a crowd and ended up that they just become another freak show in the midst of the crowd. So it's kind of like going to the state fair. And there was those booths that I never was allowed to go in, thankfully. And you have the bearded lady and the snake lady and the world's fattest person, and you got this thing, and it's like the freak show thing. We don't need the state fair anymore. We have Walmart, of a group of people that are taking the freak show and trying to make it as somebody that's standing out in the middle of this freak show. It's easy to be different today. Just look normal. Just be who the Creator created you to be. Like, if you're a male, you look like a male. If you're a female, look like a female. I mean, talk about standing out in a crowd. If you just dress your part, you're going to stand out in a crowd from everybody else. Because when a normal person walks into the freak show, who's now the freak show? Yeah, the freak show thinks that the normal person is the freak show. Crazy. It is a world of there's no adjectives for the world anymore. But we're to be peculiar because we are living our lives unto Him. And after he says this, he goes on then to talk about what is clean and what is unclean. I mean, you go to a restaurant these days, and just because you can, you ask the waitress, do the refried beans have lard in them? What? Huh? Well, why do you ask? Well, we don't eat pork. What? I mean, you want to stand out in the crowd. Don't eat biblically. You're going to be thought of as the freak show. You order a pizza that doesn't have pepperoni on it, doesn't have sausage on it. What do you mean you don't eat an egg biscuit with an egg McMuffin? What do you mean you don't eat sausage? What do you eat then? Consider that a person that doesn't eat pork in America, it's like, if you don't eat bacon, you don't eat sausage, what are you going to starve to death? Yeah, because there's nothing out there for breakfast. Yes, there is. There's plenty of things. So, what we eat or don't eat makes us a segula people. Goes down into the last part of verse 21. You're not to boil a young animal in its mother's milk. All right, now I know that Judaism, rabbinic Judaism, has come up with a lot of fences and things regarding this. I'm not casting judgment. I'm not pointing fingers. Not doing any of that regarding that. But I don't believe that's that what Judaism is become regarding the dietary laws. And though there are some health benefits to those dietary laws, but I believe that this is about a pagan practice. Boiling a young animal in its mother's milk is basically a reference to the commandment about the little bird and the eggs in the nest. When you boil a a young animal in its mother's milk, life is not going on. You have quit respecting life, which most pagan practices are based upon the lack of respect for life. It goes from there into every year you must take 1/10 of everything your seed produces in the field. Guess what? A peculiar people is a people who are givers. Wow. I mean, you want to be looked at as crazy, give. I was, got in a position the other day. I was in with a few guys, needed to raise some funds to send to Israel, and I could see that they're like, why would you do that? What? I mean, why don't you raise some funds for me? No, I'm giving to a right cause. So the people who are a unique treasure are going to be givers. You mean in a bad economy? Yeah. If you're now this whole thing about tithing, it was just to me, I don't see what the argument is. Okay? I don't see the argument. I never did. Even before I was in ministry, before I was on the receiving end of this thing, which is really a lot harder. Believe me, it's a lot harder. It was really fun to be on the giving end when I owned a business. To be on the receiving end of this conversation, it's not as much fun as people you might think it is. I'd much rather be on the giving end of this, but this is where the Father has me. But it was just never a conversation in my home, in our home, of whether we were going to tithe, whether we were going to give. We always tried to find the best places to give. First of all, where I'm going and eating, being fed, I mean, that was like on the priority. That was on the priority sheet of where we were going to be giving. And so, if your whole life is about yourself, then how is that making you a unique treasure? That's just making you one of the crowd. Now, the next thing it goes into is the Shemitah. And what is the Shemitah about? It's about forgiveness. It's about forgiving the debts. So we are to be a people who discern what is clean and unclean. We are to be a people who refrain from pagan practices. We are to be a people of givers, and we're also to be a people of forgivers. Giving and forgiving. Those two go along beside each other. The words of Yeshua, when he said, "To whom much is given, much will be expected." It's the parable of the man who forgave, but yet would not forgive. We can give till the cows come home, but if we're not willing to forgive, then is our giving really worth anything? I question that. And lastly, in chapter 16, he goes over the festivals, the Moedim, the appointments with destiny. So we're to be a people of appointments with destiny. Passover, we celebrated our redemption, our appointment with the King, and his forgiveness to us. Going forward to Shabbat, we celebrated the giving of a new way of life. We're coming up on Yom Teruah, the appointment with the King to stand before him on Yom Kippur, and then our appointment of eternity. So I guess that we should be preparing for our festivals, not with sight, but with perception. Therefore, we look at the festivals in light of where we're going. Got a verse I don't think I can find it real quick here. Let me see if I can. Nope, I can't find it that fast. I'm going to be talking about this as we get a little closer to the festivals. But as we do, let me turn one or two more pages here. Sorry, I just kind of thought of this and should have already had that verse. It's not in my notes. Okay, I'll get it later on. There's a verse in the prophets that talks about those who come together for the festivals, but they do so grieving. As we prepare for Yom Teruah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot this year, there should be a grieving that we're not in the land, that the king has not returned. We will enter into this time probably with a war continuing in Israel, hostages still in captivity. Are we to have joy? Yes, because we are people of perception. We're not people that just look at what is here in front of us, but we are people who perceive the kingdom to come and the eternity beyond. And if we do so, I believe we will be a unique people in His sight. Something to strive for, something to live for. Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov, have a blessed, prosperous week. Bezrat Hashem, God willing. See you again next week, and until then, be strong.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.